Episode 5, coming at you like a rocket.
Let's go.
This is a special episode. We recently celebrated the birthday of 2 out of our 3 co-hosts. Mick the Coach Hoggett, Christopher the Captain Kinsey. Your birthday is on June 1st.
June 1st.
So
we share birthday.
And always have.
Yep, well, since I was born. Since 1981.
Me, pre-81, a.k.a. 78.
Do you guys care to divulge how old you both are at this point in time?
46.
Well, I just, 43.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
You're both
go.
older than me for now.
Barely.
Just a smidge.
I guess for always. Just a little bit. I'm 42. I'm right behind you guys. Well, also on June 1st, momentous occasion. And I'm going to pass the mic off here to the captain, our resident space expert. Though all of us hold, I think, a high degree of interest in space. Tell us what was going on the first, Kinsey.
What did go down on the first? It didn't go down on the first, right?
It goes down
it was
tomorrow.
supposed to. Oh,
I hope not.
Apologies. I thought you had.
No, now it's the 6th, I think.
Oh, it's even been pushed since the 4th.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Okay.
Goodness. Well, what was supposed to happen?
Well, they're coming up on the 4th SpaceX Starship integrated flight test. So it's like the full Starship booster stack. The 4th one. It's coming up. I mean, it's crazy how it goes. You never know when it's going to be. All these guys on these YouTube channels that I follow, they check the maritime, all these announcements and things to try to guess when and predict when launches are going to be. There's some Air Force reconnaissance jet or something plane that they use to during those launches that they use to get aerial footage of it of the launches, and they follow the flight plans for those, because usually when that plane is scheduled there's going to be a launch. So I don't know, I just listen to the guys on YouTube, but
man,
no, so it's coming up
stuff, though.
I thought it was going to be on our birthday.
Yeah, I think it was initially, and then it got pushed to the 4th, and I guess it's been pushed again. And so, I follow SpaceX on social media, but I've not seen anything recent as far as what their next launch is going to be. It's pretty.
As of this morning,
stuff.
They were saying 6. Let's see.
Okay, very cool. That's just a couple days away.
But yeah, this time hopefully. Well, last time, what happened last time? Last time they actually separated, the Starship reached orbit, but then it went nuts. I think it started spinning, and I don't know. It burned up trying to re-enter.
Gotcha.
But this time, every time they have increased in.
They have more success every time, don't they?
Yeah, so they really are iterating on their mistakes and changing stuff.
Everything I've seen. I mean, and of course we've talked about the Falcon rockets that they launch and then re-land. Those things are incredible. Watching them re-land on those platforms in the ocean is
like on barges.
Yeah, it's a weird. It looks like a hell.
It's not even a
helipad.
stationary object. They're landing on a moving barge.
Yeah, it's like moving in the ocean, right?
Yeah,
and so which is even more fascinating. Those things are so calibrated down to the minutia to land like they do.
Yeah,
and sometimes, rough sea. That they're landing those things, and they land every time. I mean, probably not every time.
They lost one the other day. It landed on one of those barges. I think it actually landed, and then it tipped over.
Oh, really?
Because the barge was kind of in choppy sea. Yeah.
Because I've seen a couple where I'm going, how is that thing able to land in that water? But it does it, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Now, SpaceX, the first company to do these reusable rockets. Are they the only company doing it? And why? Why so long? The wait.
Yeah. Well, SpaceX was definitely the first one to land on not necessarily to recover, but to land a booster back where it took off, essentially.
Yeah. Because I know.
Am I wrong? I'm not like a.
I don't think so.
I think they were the first ones, and that's been the that's kind of the like core of the Falcon system.
Is its reusability and like its relaunchability, I guess.
Yeah.
After it comes back, which I think is really cool. Because
some of those boosters have gone like dozens of times. I think have been reused dozens of times,
which is incredible. Which is, I mean, because Musk's whole thing is you're going to have reusable rockets to go for deep space travel and other planetary travel, and so be able to not master, but be able to be pretty confident that you can reuse a rocket.
Well, and they're rapidly reusable is kind of also the big thing. Their
turnaround's quick.
Yeah, financially, the fact that you can reuse a rocket is, it cuts down on the cost of every launch, but it's the fact that they can do it so quickly too.
Mm-hmm. Which is cool.
Because they're going to have to be shooting these things off like 3 a day at some point.
Yeah, like all the time.
If they really want to do what they say they're going to do. Which I don't understand why. I don't understand why with the Starship and the and booster, their plan to recover those is to catch them with the chopsticks on the launch tower. And I guess I don't know why. Yeah, I guess I don't know why they didn't just go with the same method with the Falcon.
It's interesting.
And land them.
Yeah,
they're much bigger than the Falcon booster. I mean, it might just be
the what are they called? What are they called? The Star.
The Starship is the top
ship.
part, and they just call it the booster.
So yeah.
But
I saw the graphic that showed the difference between the Apollo rocket and the Starship.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
It's so much bigger.
Yeah.
Than what we launched during the Apollo missions.
Think about there were 5 Atlas V rockets on the first stage of the Saturn V.
Yeah.
There are like 33 Raptor engines on the booster.
Jeez.
And then I think 6 on the ship. And that's kind of changed as time has gone. And the 33 on the booster has changed too. It was like 31 and they went to 33.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nuts.
You guys are way deep into the weeds here. I know that we used to launch the space shuttle. It was a reusable aircraft.
Yes.
That's since been decommissioned. Is that the word you would use for an airplane? Or maybe just boats?
Yeah, I mean, they canceled the program, I guess.
So the program is canceled. In that period of time, what the U.S. was flying to the space station pretty much on Russian rockets, right?
Yeah, after they canceled, they grounded the...
Yeah, after the launch program was kind of shut down. We were hitching rides.
Correct.
And how long have we not been hitching rides? That's very recent, right?
Not long. I mean, the first crewed Falcon launch was within the last 2 or 3 years.
I would say it wasn't very long ago.
Because, I mean, I remember it was 2 years ago, maybe. Now, they'd been launching Falcon rockets with, like, payload, like satellites, for years before that. I think they first landed those Falcon boosters and mastered that in, like, 2018-ish. So they've been flying the Falcon for 6 years or so. But only a couple years ago put people on it and launched it to the space station.
Yeah, for the old ISS.
That's a good point though about the space shuttle, because the space shuttle gets a lot of I mean, obviously it gets they canceled it. And it had problems. It was so expensive. But it was reusable. I mean, we act like it wasn't, but they those saw the big tank in the on the bottom of it. That they got back and reused. Obviously, the orbiter was reusable because they landed it like an airplane. And I think those. So I mean, we act like SpaceX is the first ones to reuse something like that, but.
I think to the degree that we're talking about, I think is the big difference. Because I mean, I know like the Columbia shuttle, it made a couple of missions. That's the only one that's popping into my head that I know. Maybe the Discovery
Yeah, that's
as
a good
well.
point. I don't know how many times they used.
I mean,
I mean,
maybe
the
2, 3 max.
The orbiters, though, they went way more than that. I mean, because there were 130 some odd shuttle missions, and there were only, I think, 4 or 5 orbiters ever built.
Okay.
So those things did.
So they must have had more than that, like 10 or 15.
Oh yeah, they did like
launches.
I can't look it up because I don't have a mic stand, so I'm just like look it up and see like what the Challenger Endeavour did. Endeavour, I think, was the first one.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say 20 or 30 each, maybe.
That's
I could be
way
wrong.
more than I was thinking.
But that's the thing; they only built like 4 or 5 of those things. I mean, do you know how many? I mean, if SpaceX's plan goes through as are saying now, I mean, they'll have hundreds and hundreds of these starships.
Musk's plan, it truly is Mars, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, that's what he said. That's what he says.
They call the the spaceport down there, what is it called? Pathway to Mars, Gateway to Mars.
Yeah, just for the Columbia flew 28 missions, so way more than I thought. 28 for the Columbia.
I did not understand. As a kid, I thought the space shuttle was awesome.
Me too.
I thought that was a big deal. Now,
it's a huge
a lot
deal.
of the space documentaries I've watched, even everyone in the program really poo-poos it. Just a big flying dud. It was boring, and it was really a result of us saying we're not really going to explore space anymore. We're going to do science experiments up there, which kind of stole a little bit of the joy of the space shuttle for me, I have to admit.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I mean, I would fly a toy space shuttle around like it was some kind of awesome space plane, and then you start hearing them talk about it like a truck,
it's a brick. It's just flying. It's just hurtling through space, pretty much.
Just a transport truck. And you're like, oh, that's not as cool as I.
So just for reference, so Columbia flew 28 missions. Endeavour flew 25. The Discovery flew the most with 39. So that's pretty cool.
So what are they? Endeavour.
There's Endeavour,
Challenger.
Discovery, Challenger. Obviously,
I'm trying to get down to how many orbiters there ever were.
Yeah. That I don't know.
A fun fact. So the first one that flew to space was Endeavour, but the one before that they used for testing, like in you'd see them, they take it up on that 747.
Yep.
The one that they tested, I think it was called now I'm gonna blank. What's the Enterprise? Because they named it, they did like a contest or something to name it, and they named it Enterprise after the Star Trek.
That was NASA built 5: the Challenger, the Endeavour, the Discovery, Atlantis, and Columbia. Columbia made its maiden voyage, its maiden launch in 1981. And of course, we lost the Challenger in 85, 86, 87, somewhere in there.
And I think they flew till what? Like 2011, 12, something. So at least, I mean, they had a good 30-year run.
It's a good run.
I think that's a good run for,
Yeah.
Well, can we roll it back? I think we need to start with where any of this interest in space comes from and when maybe it took off. Because when we started this podcast, and Christopher, you and I have been friends for, I don't know, a long time, over 20 years.
Yes.
I honestly had no idea. You were telling me you were reading books on astronauts and you were like running through. I had no clue. And so
I guess I don't know when it started for me. I mean, I always loved like Space Shuttle and all that stuff, and like space movies. The movie Space Camp, literally, I was an obsession when I was a kid.
Great movie. Terrible movie, but great movie.
Absolutely.
But great cast though. Joaquin Phoenix.
A very young childhood Joaquin Phoenix.
Who else is in it?
He was Leaf Phoenix back then.
Yeah, you're right. He was. The guy that is I'm going to be terrible at these actors' names. Anyway, you can look it up and see the cast list. It wasn't like a nobody movie, but it was terrible. Yeah.
It's just the thought of like, oh, we accidentally launched these children and this one teenager into space with a rocket.
I like wanted that to happen to me though. Like I like, I always told myself I would just hang around a space shuttle like that and see if that might happen to me.
I also forgot a very young Kelly Preston.
Yeah.
Is in this movie.
Yeah.
John Travolta's wife.
Mm-hmm.
Tate Donovan.
That's who I was trying to think of.
Is the redhead from Back to the Future? What is her name?
Leah Thompson.
Leah Thompson.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, see?
This movie had star-studded. Wow.
Really?
So many people.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched Space Camp,
please
go
do
take
so.
the time.
Please do.
It's on streaming platforms.
The movie poster literally says the summer's greatest adventure.
See?
Come on.
What more do you need, man? I mean...
Okay. So for the listeners out there, we're not going to do a full movie recap here, but basically kids go to space camp. They're training on, as if this space program was more than it is today. Or maybe we're seeing a resurgence, but it was a big deal back then. Any kid wanted to go to space camp in the 80s. And then somehow, I can't remember the circumstances, they end up on a live rocket. Just the kids and maybe one adult. And
there's one adult. Yeah.
They end up
Kate
a robot.
Capshaw was the adult. Steven Spielberg's wife.
Was that
Kate
who that
Capshaw.
was?
Yes.
Oh.
She's the seasoned space astronaut that's
I
going
don't
to guide
remember
these young
that.
people. Yeah.
That woman seemed like a nobody actress to me. Yeah, and a Max, the little robot, which was Joaquin Phoenix's little robot, Max,
who basically grants Joaquin's wish and launches the rocket. Because he wants to go to space.
Space Camp takes place like at Cape Canaveral, apparently, like in the vicinity of the actual launching rockets. That's where
it's hooked up and ready, and it was ready to go. It just needed someone to flip the switch, and it would just take off.
Yeah. And kids have access to robots that apparently can like hack and control billion-dollar spacecraft.
Yeah, in 1986.
So upon watching the movie, terrifying to you, super exciting to you. I mean, did you see yourself doing that? Okay.
Yeah, terrifying though.
That would be so scary.
Yeah. But in the kind of way where you like also imagine yourself doing it, like you're the hero,
Okay.
Kind of reminds me of another space movie, Armageddon, when Owen Wilson's sitting on the rocket right before it's launched. And he goes, we're sitting on 2,000 pounds of rocket fuel. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm 98% scared or 2% afraid, or I'm 98% afraid and 2% scared. Because he goes, is anybody guys else kind of freaked out that we're sitting on a rocket?
His other great line from that movie is whenever Billy Bob Thornton is explaining like what it's going to be like.
Yes.
And he says, so scariest environment imaginable. That's all you got to say. Just
scariest environment imaginable. Yeah.
So great. That's a great one. That's a really good one. Okay, so it starts with Space Camp, and then you're deep diving though at this point, Kinsey, and maybe you too, Mick. I don't mean to exclude you.
I love space. I was more into I grew up. My dad loved pilots. He was big into pilots, and so I grew up him talking to me about Chuck Yeager, who broke the sound barrier, and talking to me about. I was reading stuff about Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, all those guys, those Apollo astronauts. That I was more into the pilot aspect of it, because the first grade astronauts were all great pilots that flew jets, and they were combat. They're fighter pilots.
They were like test pilots. A lot of
test
them,
pilots.
Neil Armstrong
they were flying rockets in the desert, going a million miles an hour, pushing the envelope, to figure out, they were kind of true pioneers. I think that's what I enjoyed most about. That's what got me into space more than anything was the pioneer aspect of it, because those guys were willing to like, hey, you're going to do something unbelievable, unimaginable. And so that's because like the first space movie I watched with my dad sat down and made me watch was The Right Stuff, which was like an 8-part movie miniseries about the Apollo. Well, it started with the Saturn rockets and Gemini and Mercury and all that right up until, all that stuff.
You're not talking about the like motion picture, The Right Stuff then there's a motion picture from the 80s
It's
Yeah,
quite
so-
long though. Are you thinking of that, Mick?
Yeah, The Right Stuff.
Yeah.
Was
okay.
it a movie? I thought it was.
Yeah.
It might have been a movie. Maybe it was a 3-hour movie. And so
Maybe it's
yeah,
an 8-hour movie.
it was. Yeah, because it had like Ed Harris in it.
Yeah, that's
and
just
all those
that was
guys.
just a motion
Was
picture.
it just a movie?
But,
Golly, I
but
can't
I
remember.
think, but there was a miniseries though. that
Maybe
was
that's
like
what
a-
I'm confusing.
An actual
They
series.
redid
about-
it with a series later.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the original movie. That's what like it was like a 3-hour movie.
Mhm.
Sam Shepard's in it. I think
Yeah.
he plays Gordo
80s
Cootie.
Yeah. It's
Was it a movie? Gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a
1983.
movie first, but I do recall that there was a miniseries later.
Like
Yeah,
on
there's
ABC
been-
or something like that.
Now you guys know I live in Houston,
That's
Yeah,
right,
baby.
dude.
Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center.
Uh-huh.
Never
Uh,
been.
Oh, you got to come down. Christopher, have you been?
Yeah, we went when Olivia and Matt moved down there. I want to take the girls though, because Eloise would love it.
Well, I think we need to all go together. I don't see a way
I would
around
love
that.
that.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing to see if you have any interest in the space program. They have one of the space shuttles there on top of a 737,
47.
747,
Yeah.
whatever they would use to transport the space
Yeah.
shuttle. And you
Yeah.
can walk up in it and stuff. And at the time I went, which was probably 10 years ago, if not longer, the first time, they would actually take you to mission control. You
Yeah.
could see that. They would take you to where they're building stuff for exploration. There's a big area for that. And there's a place called Rocket Park, which is basically a building. How big would you say that is? 2 football fields, Christopher?
Yeah, it's just like a giant hangar of a type of a building.
And
I
it's
mean,
got a
really?
Saturn rocket laying on its
on its
side.
side. Yeah.
That's
Used
cool.
to be outside, exposed to nature, if you'd believe that, in Houston, where it's wet and
Yeah.
hot. Now, I'll tell you, they used to have a way that you could just pull in there and park in a little parking lot and go to the rocket park for free. They've gotten rid of that. But it's worth seeing, and it's really cool. So, bucket list for me is definitely to see a rocket launched in person.
Nice.
Same.
Probably not going to happen in Florida, but where
Mm-hmm.
is it that SpaceX launches from? It's somewhere in Texas, right?
Boca Chica down there by not right on the coast. By what's the spring break place?
Oh, South Padre?
Yeah, I think it's close to Padre.
Really cool.
Yeah. And it's like on a state highway. I mean, you can they close the highway, but there's a beach like across the water that a lot of people watch it from.
That's pretty cool.
we should do that too. It's just hard because they're so unpredictable.
Mm.
Yeah, going
Um,
down there, you might think it's going to launch, and then something changes, and you're
Yeah.
stuck down.
And I'm afraid
You
by
don't
the
see it.
time they, if and when they actually start doing these things, I think they'll probably eventually do it from the Cape.
I was thinking, yeah.
Because they're building a tower there right now, and they've got one and building. But I think I don't know. We'll see because it's better. There's a lot of reasons why it's better to launch from the Cape and not from the Gulf of Mexico. But
Do either of you guys have any real interest in the actual populating and living on Mars aspect?
no,
No.
Zero, no.
Not especially. No.
I kind of don't even think it's. I as much as I love this stuff, I'm also
The
like,
feasibility
super.
seems.
I just don't know that I mean, I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime. So
Mm-hmm.
that's all you can really say, right? To say like I don't think they're ever going to go to Mars sounds pretty stupid, but I just don't know why you'd want to go there. But
Yeah, that seems. Yeah. What's the? How long's
well,
the
let
flight?
me take it back. I think we should go just to do it, like we went to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we should send astronauts there 100%, but I don't think we need to try to colonize Mars.
No.
What about colonizing the moon?
I guess if you could find some resources there, like if you could actually find water, if they're able to find ice at the pole and figure out how to melt it and use it, I mean, if there's like a
Yeah.
feasible way you could be there and live there, I guess, but I don't know.
I think it
There'd
would
have to be a
interesting-
reason. You'd have to be mining something there. Like there'd have to be,
Mhm.
or else why would you do it?
Have you guys watched
Yeah.
any of the show For All Mankind on
Great
Apple
show.
Plus?
Apple TV?
Yes.
Yes, amazing.
Kind of that alternate timeline if we did, colonize the moon and what that's like. Pretty good show.
Back to your question about like how, I mean, there's just been so many movies since Apollo 13 was one that I loved.
So good.
That was the first one. That was the first movie where I got into like the Apollo program. Because before that, it was like, oh, you knew Neil Armstrong came out of, you knew that whole kind of thing. Like but you didn't know much about it. It wasn't like when I was a kid. It wasn't the focus. The focus was the space shuttle.
Yes.
And so and then in the early 2000s, like there were how many? There was From the Earth to the Moon miniseries that was like that was Tom Hanks produced and stuff. I don't think he was in that one, but that was. And you guys can probably remember there were like a handful of Apollo type era movies and miniseries and stuff, and I just became fascinated with that then. And then, like Mick, I started reading I read Neil Armstrong's biography, Michael Collins' biography. Trying to think which other. I just got into all the Apollo stuff and Mercury and Gemini. But
were those guys both Apollo guys?
Collins and Armstrong, they were both on 11 with Armstrong, Collins, and Aldrin.
Aldrin were Apollo 11.
11.
Mm-hmm.
Was Collins on 10 that almost flew down? No, that was Stafford from Oklahoma.
Tom Stafford.
Because I've been to, so that's a great Thomas P. Stafford who just passed away recently, who's from Weatherford, Oklahoma, who has a great space museum. He was on 10, I believe.
I think
I'll
that
have to research
right.
that. He actually piloted or commanded when we kind of started the descent down to the moon.
They went all but landed.
All but land, but then come back up. And then that was all they were supposed to do. And so that's a great museum, by the way. If you're listening and you want a little day drive out to straight out I-40, the Air and Space Museum in Weatherford, the Thomas Stafford Museum, it's fantastic. A couple of cool planes. He's got one of his space capsules out there, a couple of rockets. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. Pretty cool museum to go check out.
Those three guys were all Gemini, all flew on the Gemini program too, but I don't think – I'm trying to think of the Mercury astronauts that were crossovers to Apollo. I know Alan Shepard flew in Apollo, but I don't know that there were any others. I'd have to look.
Could you do a quick for like a third grader recap of the order of, is it Gemini first, or as they say in some of the space shows, Gemini?
Gemini, yeah, you got to say it right. Gemini. No, it was Mercury. So Mercury were the single capsule. Those actually launched on freaking Redstone rockets, which were like intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Basically, it was an unarmed nuke.
They took the warhead off and put a person in a can on the
strapped a dude to the front of it and launched him.
Well, so is Mercury what they sent the dog and the chimps up in?
Yeah,
pretty much.
I think those were. You know what? Honestly, I don't even know if those missions were considered Mercury. Those might have just been. You'd have to look that up. I don't know if they considered it the Mercury program until it was manned with humans, but it could have. But yeah, it was the same stuff. It was the same capsule, I guess. So yeah.
Jim Lovell was a crossover. He was a Gemini astronaut. He was
but was he Mercury? I'm talking about going from Mercury to
Mercury,
Apollo.
Okay, so Mercury's single person in there, so it's Gemini when they go to like multiple people, but still in the capsule.
Yeah, it was similar.
Okay,
it wasn't the same. It had like two hatches. Have you seen it? It kind of had like the gull wing hatches that popped up, but essentially kind of that same shape as the Mercury capsule.
Mm-hmm.
The Apollo capsule gets more like a cone, like a funnel, like a real wide funnel. The other two were more narrow, because they were launching them on little tiny rockets too.
Yeah. Okay.
John Glenn who became a congressman ultimately. He was Mercury. That's what I was trying to think of.
He was Mercury, but I don't think he flew Apollo.
Nope, because John Glenn made the first.
He was on a shuttle.
Made the first orbit, right?
John Glenn was orbited first, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they put him on a space shuttle in when he was 74. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that. It was a huge deal for him to go up.
He was the oldest. He still is the oldest person, I think, in space.
Yeah.
I mean, he was. He's probably. I don't know if he's alive now.
He's from Ohio originally. Ended up being a senator or representative, House
Probably.
representative.
Yeah.
Forever.
A lot of those guys did that.
Yeah.
No, so there were 7 Mercury astronauts. That's like what the one of those movies is like the something 7 or what am I thinking of?
Because I'm looking at Gordon Cooper, Shawnee kid,
yep,
right, from Shawnee Gordon Cooper, John Glenn, Alan Shepard, Gus Grissom, then Wally Schirra, Scott Carpenter. That's the only ones I'm seeing listed here.
Yeah.
Well,
You guys watch Astronaut Wives?
No.
I remember that show.
I mean, it's more about the women.
Deke Slayton's the one I'm missing.
So Deke Slayton never flew. So, he became
he ended up getting grounded because of health reasons, correct?
Yeah, but then he basically ran the astronaut office for
years.
Any of these movies, there'll be a guy and you'll be like, it's the guy that's just talking to the astronauts like for all the other people.
It's always Deke Slayton. He's always the one telling them who's going to be the commander, who's going to be the pilot, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
he's
always
like their
his
buddy,
role.
But also their boss, because he started as an astronaut. Then Gus Grissom was Mercury, and then he died in Apollo 1. He was one of the 3 that died
on the ground.
The fire, yeah.
Yeah.
So he would have been Mercury to Apollo.
He'd have gone all the way through all 3 programs, which is pretty incredible.
What's really crazy, though, is that until Challenger, the only astronauts that had ever been killed were not in a flight. Yeah,
it'd been just tests.
And 2 astronauts got killed in a T-39 trainer jet, just going from Cape Canaveral to Houston. Crashed once. That was during Mercury or Gemini, and then the 3 guys in the fire.
In Apollo 1 on the
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, that's sad for those guys, but the fact that those are the only casualties.
I should say American casualties. I think there were some Russian guys that had problems re-entering and stuff like that.
When you think about the volatility of that program and how experimental and unknown it was to only have that level of without those 4 or 5 casualties over the span of decades. Until the Challenger explosion when I was in elementary school is pretty unbelievable.
Well, and that's one of the criticisms of sort of how NASA has done stuff up until now versus how SpaceX is doing its development is that you think about the space shuttle, they didn't just fly a bunch of space shuttles and crash them all to find out how to design it. Instead they spent years and years and years and billions of dollars and hundreds of engineers to get it right. And I mean, they got it mostly right? I mean, not all the way right, but everything can fail. But Musk is just a totally different way of, they are literally just saying, there's just the prototyping thing where they're let's build one, let's launch it.
See what happens.
One of the reasons, one of SpaceX's competitors right now, they build their rockets out of carbon fiber because there's obvious strength to weight ratio advantages, but it takes a lot longer to do it. And so Musk, they literally use stainless steel because it's just and they get it in these giant rolls that they just make these tubes out of that then become the ship. And and it's not because stainless steel looks cool. It's literally because they can just get a bunch of guys to go out there and weld it way quicker than they can get. Then they can do all this carbon fiber, epoxy resin business. I always thought that was cool. I will say, I mean, I remember when Starship was first kind of announced, I thought it was a joke. I literally, and I love space stuff. I don't think I generally take it pretty seriously. And I remember showing Haley on Instagram, and I was like, "What is this?" I was like, "This is if you asked a 5-year-old to draw a spaceship, that's what they would actually
build. That's the design we're going with."
You know what I mean? I thought it was so lame, and I was like, "This thing is never going to." I thought it was a joke. I thought Elon Musk was crazy, and I thought that he was punking everybody.
He's about to
and
launch
even, like,
another one.
I know, even like the first, because they started launching just the ship itself, like for suborbital launches, and they crashed like 3 or 4 of those. They just blew. I mean, and I just still was thinking this is a joke until they finally landed. I think number 15 or something.
Jeez.
Back, like it went up, like hundreds of thousands of feet in the sky, came back down and landed, and that was kind of the first time that I thought, okay, like, because it actually went up, like maneuvered, did its little belly flop thing, and then landed, and I thought, oh, okay, well, they're not joking around. But
Yep.
My favorite part of Starship is its booster name. Super heavy.
Super heavy.
Super heavy.
Incredible. I mean,
yeah.
his obsession with X is a little curious to me, but he's really killing it on these Starship. Great name. Super heavy though.
Super heavy. And then what do they call? So right now they have the Falcon, but then what is it where they put 3 of them together? It's like it's essentially 3 Falcon boosters with 1 payload, and they call it not super heavy, but something like that. Yeah, the names are awesome.
What is Dragon? What is that for?
That's the capsule, the crew capsule for the Falcon. So that's the one that takes people and supplies to the space station. Starlink?
What is that?
That's SpaceX's it's like internet or satellite-based internet that they.
Yeah.
They've been. I mean, they used
some cruise line. He just signed some big multi-billion-dollar deal with a cruise line that's got all Starlink internet. Their entire.
I mean, yeah.
For their boats.
They just keep launching those things into the sky. Like, I mean, I can't imagine even being in orbit at this point. There's so much crap up there.
I mean,
especially
I need to tell you,
Starlink satellites.
On that note, I mean, that I have to admit, when I think about space now and the realities of it, the thing that terrifies me the most is space debris. There's so much of it up there. Yeah. If you go actually Google it, it's terrifying how much I mean, and it takes something like the size of a pea, right? Yeah. But it's traveling like 3,000 miles an hour.
And they act like it's no big deal, like in the sense that you don't hear much talk about it. However, like they're tracking like hundreds of thousands of pieces of space debris, and NASA keeps an active track on it. So I'm like, it must be important enough or like risky enough that they're tracking it.
Well, doesn't Japan actually have like a program where they're removing space debris?
Maybe, yeah, I heard about something like that. Like I don't know if they're going and like changing the orbits of these things to make them crash into the atmosphere or what. But you're right. I did hear something.
Did you guys ever go watch the video of the asteroid or the debris in Poland?
No.
Did you watch the clip?
No, I
need to see it still. I went and Googled it when you mentioned it, but it didn't bring up any moving pictures for me.
Moving photos. Let's see if I can find. I'll try to send one to you guys while we're sitting here. It just, the lighting of it was so strange because it's like blue. It was very different.
Oh, wow.
Now, Mick, with the aviation aspect and the exploration aspect being what initially drew you to space, where do you fall when it comes to space movies? Like, do you draw the line at space fantasy? If it's rooted in nonfiction, is it still good? If it's something that's super far out, are you like, nah?
Can I ask a question about that first?
Yeah, please, feel free.
I want to think about an answer too, but
all right, now let's head into the
like, do we consider like Star Wars? Would you even put it in that realm? I mean, even though it's obviously a space movie, it's like, to me, it's. I wouldn't put it in that category though. Maybe because it's too big for me to consider along the lines of Space Camp. You know, like.
Yeah, there's so much outside of space that happens there, right? I see what you're saying.
It's not about space. It's just in space.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the background.
So I would say I would say the distinction would be the movie has to be like about space travel in some way.
Yeah. So I mean, I do like the more authentic stuff, but I do like sci-fi and I do like fantasy. So you're going to get some of that. You know, like there's one. I don't know if you guys. One of my favorites. It's kind of crazy and intense, but you seen Event Horizon with Lawrence Fishburne and Sam McNeill?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great movie, right? Kind of deals with
Space
time travel.
horror.
Yeah, that's like I was going to
Space
say.
horror. I mean, which is kind of crazy,
But
but it's a good. I like that movie. I like the one that has space travel. You know, that's what they're there for. But then you also have like whole time travel and wormholes and alternate realities, kind of crash, blending all together, which I think is pretty cool. And so,
you guys remember the movie with Sandra Bullock and
Gravity?
Yeah, that was like such a big deal. And then I don't think, I remember I kind of didn't love.
Was that with George Clooney?
George Clooney. But remember, it was like, what was so special about it? Was it just because it was like just the two of them, basically the whole movie?
Yeah, just in that capsule.
In space.
Yeah, in space. Yeah.
In and around.
Well,
and
that was a little too real, maybe. Maybe it was a little too much space.
Yeah.
It was weird. I remember the ending of that. It was weird seeing her, not to spoil it for a 15-year-old movie.
Yeah, spoiler if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Fast forward.
Yeah.
But, she goes from being in outer space to being in the ocean, in a matter of minutes. And I never think about that aspect about how quickly that really happens. In movies, you're either in space or you're hurtling through the burning atmosphere and then landing. But it was so quick. Now, yeah, that was an interesting one.
Well, in honor of re-release Interstellar, okay?
Oh man.
Dude,
love that movie. That mind-bending.
Such a good
mind. Is it 10 years old? Is that the re-release? Is it 10 years?
So Christopher Nolan just recently re-released it in theaters. Matthew McConaughey, obviously, and Anne Hathaway. Great movie. Geez. Great movie, but absolute mind trip from start to finish.
Do you guys see Ad Astra with
Yes. Yep.
Was that Brad Pitt?
Brad Pitt, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of recent ones that kind of like got lost. What do you think about movies like the kind of like space horror genre? Like obviously Alien, but then there was one with Jake Gyllenhaal not too long ago.
Oh, Life. Isn't that what it was called?
I tend to kind of like those, but not like, but kind of wish they did more about like space. Like sometimes I'm like, you just did this movie. You could have been in a, you could have been in a haunted museum. Like it just doesn't like.
You just chose to do it in a rocket ship in space. Yeah.
It seems like it comes down to space horror movies are one of two things. It's either organism terror, right? Like in Life.
That one was, yeah.
Yes.
Or Event Horizon is more psychological, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. because they're dealing with like some sort of rift in space and time, and it deals with the alternate realities, and so their minds they don't know what's real, what's not. So that's kind of what that gets into, and Sam.
Which Interstellar kind of has all of that. Well, not the pathogen one, but I mean it's very psychological, but also like I think practically a cool space film. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
Contact is a favorite of mine. Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster.
Contact.
Such a good movie.
Yep.
When
that was a good
when
one.
you realize
that
at the
one.
end they're like you passed right through, and at the end they're like, why do we have 13 hours?
Spoiler if you haven't.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
What is the
she
Tom
left the planet
Cruise
for 13
space movie?
hours, guys.
Oh, that's good too. With
Say that one again.
Emily Blunt. Are you talking about the one with Emily Blunt?
Yeah, the Tom Cruise space movie.
It's kind of space-ish. I mean, he's
Which
on
one?
like Earth,
What's
though,
it
right?
called?
Isn't he?
Oh, is it Earth? No, I thought he was on.
Maybe we're thinking of different movies.
I mean, The Martian's fantastic.
Oh, The
That's
Martian.
a good one.
That's a good book too. If you want to read a book,
It is a good book. Yes,
S out of this thing. That's my favorite Planet movie.
Yeah. My favorite was somewhere somebody did like how he like takes off from Mars. Spoilers ahead. He takes off from Mars though in that where they've ripped everything out of that capsule, and there's not even windows.
Yes.
And I saw something where somebody did the whole like, could they actually have done that? And I think it was mostly improbable, but like possible, but like
highly improbable.
Yeah, but it's a good movie.
Oh, so good, so good.
No, I'm excited for this launch. I don't know, you guys, if you are listening and you've never watched one, they're just on YouTube. I
either watch them live or I watch the replay if I don't catch it when when it's live.
There's sometimes earlier in the morning. I follow a account called NASA Spaceflight, and it's I mean, you can watch some of the stuff on SpaceX, but they only have content like during the launch. But some of these but the NASA Spaceflight NSF is a good YouTube channel. If you want to know anything about, it says NASA Spaceflight, but if you look at their videos, they're all basically they have 3.7 thousand videos, and they're mostly about SpaceX.
Walking my house.
This scared the crap out of me.
Get noise. My apologies to the listeners.
So shout out to NASA Spaceflight.
Maybe mute that mic for a minute.
So Bo, oh my gosh,
another dog has entered the scene. That's great. That's good stuff.
Romeo has entered the chat.
Romeo. Okay, what about actual space stuff? We've talked a lot about space programs, space exploration.
Oh, okay.
But maybe, how about just like stars, black holes, quasars, any of that? Like astronomy?
To me, it's somewhat fascinating, but not as much as space travel. Like, I know that stuff's out there, and it's cool to see and like learn things about it. It just seems so untouchable and it's hard for me to like relate too much to.
I took 3 days of astronomy 101
that's right.
at OU. I did not realize it was basically a math class.
Oh gosh, I would have hated that.
I was out of there so fast.
See, that would have ruined space for me. I would have just been like, I don't like this stuff. Like,
I mean, I feel like planets and stars was like semester 4. The first part was just all math, physics.
What kind of math? Just like, I mean,
like
just
what
application? Math? Were they expecting you to like look through a telescope and figure out orbits and?
It's a good question. I literally was in there. No, not at all.
Gotcha.
I mean, astronomy uses algebra. Okay, I can handle that. Calculus, I'm already out. Statistics, trig. No, it was math. I was like, this is a math class.
Oh,
I just want to learn about the planets.
Well, there's that scene in Apollo 13 when Hanks Lovell's he's looking out he's doing the math right there, trying to figure out like orbit and like, how to adjust. And he's doing, I mean, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
When you're stuck in space and you cannot thrust or maneuver and you're having to calculate the angles and how to do, I mean, without computers, I mean, it's unbelievable. And so, that's some pretty serious math.
Yeah.
Out of my scope and sequence.
I think like studying the planets and the solar system and all that's really interesting though. I wish I'd done more. I don't think I would have liked astronomy in the sense that you're talking about it, but
we lived in San Antonio for a couple years, 2016 to 18. I decided I finally wanted to buy a telescope. You guys ever had a telescope?
No.
Never actually had one. Nope.
I bought a decent beginner telescope. I think it was maybe $400 or $500. It wasn't cheap. I did a lot of research. I found it was huge. Like I think it was an 8-inch. I can't remember the type of telescope it was. We don't have to get into that. But I will tell you, aside from the moon, which looked really cool, like when you can see that with your eye through a lens and the features of it.
Yeah.
But anything farther away than the moon.
Yeah,
with
what
at
were
least
you getting?
Very little.
Yeah.
Like a flashing ball of light.
That's
and I was like, man.
Could you see Saturn's rings?
Yes.
Oh, you could?
No. I could see rings around. What other planets have Saturn? Is Saturn the closest to us with rings?
Uranus.
I
think it has rings. They're like vertical, right? Or is that Saturn?
Yeah, I think
what's
you're right
vertical?
about that.
What's up and down?
Yeah, well. But it's kind of cool to see that stuff. I will tell you, I buy and sell guitars for fun. I sold a used telescope and made money on it.
No way.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in sales for
You have a
work.
gift. Yeah, you have a gift.
You do have a gift.
Anyway, so I should tell you guys, Houston not only has the Space Center, I'm an audiologist. I went to school to do stuff with like hearing and sound and stuff. And there is an audiologist that works at NASA.
That's
One.
cool.
Really?
Yeah. And I ran into him at a work thing and I was like, "Can I get a tour?" And he was like, "No, not at all."
Really?
And I said, "When are you going to retire?" And he's like, "No, listen, the other reason you don't want to come tour this, it's incredibly boring." I mean,
Does he
half
test
of
the
our-
hearing of astronauts?
yes,
Is
he
that what
tests
he
the
does?
hearing and the vestibular system, which has to do with balance.
Absolutely.
So
I
Alan
know about the
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Alan
there's a lot of.
Shepard. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one of the things in counseling that is a big deal is the vestibular system, because a lot of kiddos they misdiagnose like ADHD and hyperactivity because a lot of times they have issues with their vestibular because their balance and they don't have the good spatial awareness, so they're always touching and fidgeting all the time, and it has more to do with the fact that their vestibular's off, not ADHD. So kids get put on ADHD meds when in fact there needs to be something. They need to do some deeper diagnosis. So I'm very familiar with the vestibular because we try
Perhaps
to get kiddos.
you need to steer those kids towards the space program.
Maybe so.
For free
Hearing tests.
audiological care.
There you go.
Very cool.
Do we have a word this week?
Have we even talked about a word this week? We've had a
We
long
have not.
open.
We have had maybe the longest open.
This whole episode is just opener.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all opener. We're 51 minutes in.
To the opening.
I
To
say
the
you just
opener.
roll with it. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Okay.
Can't wait to hear people's thoughts on space.
Welcome to Obsolete Vernacular with Mick, the Coach Hoggett, Christopher, the Captain Kinsey,
That's me.
and me, Bo, Space Cadet Captain. I'm finally taking a nickname.
You going with
I
Space
like
Cadet?
it.
There we go. We don't have a word this week. I tried to look for one related to space on the fly, but space is a relatively new thing. So
Everything's obsolete to space.
should
Yeah.
we also roll end credits within 30 seconds of opener? We make the rules here.
Yeah.
No one tells us what to do.
This is our world.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean that would have been funny, but now that you said
That
it,
would
you
have
can't,
been funny.
you can't do it.
No,
now.
we
Welcome,
can't. It's too
guys.
on the nose. Well, we kind of touched on a few things with space. What have we not talked about yet that's interesting to you? There's got to be things.
Man, about space.
Yeah,
well-
or you're just anything you're interested in related to it.
Well,
do you
this is
guys
kind of
land?
related to it. Oh, let me
Go ahead,
just
Christopher.
I had this thought the other day driving. Like, do you guys ever have? This is going to sound weird. Like, do you guys have like an alter ego that you like a thing that you say is like your dream job or something that you like know you'd be good at? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, do you just have that? Like, I'll tell you mine, and then you can like. I always like think I would be a great like race car driver.
Mm.
Like I think I'm, and my wife would would laugh so much if she heard me saying this right now. But I mean, I do like I'll be driving, I'll be on like one of the big like, like really curved on or off ramps, and kind of going maybe a little too fast and feeling the G's a little bit. And I think like, gosh, I would have been such a good like race car driver. Like I'm
totally Formula
just
1,
aggressive
NASCAR.
enough, but also in traffic when I can also like, keep it together. So I just think that, and I like visualize myself being a race car driver.
Interesting.
But I'm like, like what are you? I wondered if you guys ever had anything that you did that made you think like, oh, like I just know I'd be good at that. I've never done it before. But I just know because I know in my heart that I would be good at that. Do you guys have anything like mine? Is obviously, as I said, race car driver, whatever that means. I don't know, like F1, NASCAR,
Anything where you're pulling G's, you're like, I'm
just
good for
anything where I am like in a group of people, other drivers, and I'm trying to be the first one.
Good question. Is something come to mind for you, Mick?
Man, I'm trying to think. Nothing like jumps out at me.
I think about it a
really
lot,
good.
though. That's what's weird. I assumed everyone
That
else
is
maybe thought
interesting.
about it, but
My wife,
even like Rockstar. Like I also used to think like, oh, I could totally see myself being a rock star. Like, just what's something like that?
Okay, this is a for real answer. I'm glad you drug this out or gave us some time to think about it. I could so easily just smash and be leading expert at whatever the type of archaeologist it is that actually sits back at the museum and gently scrapes off bones and anything delicately that takes a lot of time and patience. I would be so good at that.
Yeah, you would.
I like that kind of work. Just solitude.
And you like to think of, like you think about doing it, and you're like, oh, I would thrive here. Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
In the museum, right? Like in the basement, like
controlled environment, which I think is what I like about a lot of space movies. It's a very controlled environment.
That's true.
Interesting.
Mick, like, are you ever out there hunting and you just like imagine yourself like,
well, I'll tell you,
as a hunter, like and gatherer, and like, oh man, if I'd have been alive, if I'd have been a Native American living over here, and
I've often wondered, could I be a like self-sustaining? Because there are people like you watch like people that live, completely off land. Could I be completely off the grid? Could I do something like that? I don't know. But I will tell you a job that I think about. And it's probably why, I would love to, I have gone back and thought, I would like to be an FBI agent. Isn't that weird?
No, I mean.
Like I've been on I will say that, and I'm glad you did draw that a little bit, because I've gone on, I'm too old now, obviously, and have been too old for a really long time. But I can remember when I was like 32, 33, 34, going on the FBI's website and like looking at like job requirements. Like I've been there and done that.
What is it about FBI? Is it like,
I don't know. I think it's just, well, I was a huge X-Files fan, so there could have been the paranormal, like, I think I like Fox Mulder a lot. He was
like
really
the
cool.
Investigating part of it?
The investigative piece, like unraveling a mystery, catching a bad guy.
Okay.
All those,
You think you'd be good undercover?
No, probably not.
No?
I don't know. Maybe so. But I think being an FBI agent would be really cool.
I think you could sell being undercover, though. Like, I could see you like, infiltrating.
If it was the right spot, I could really get into it. I think I could.
Mick, I see you as, here's what I see you as. I could totally see you doing this. You have a brief stint as a field agent, but your talents are really in being a handler in the FBI.
Nice.
You've got your crew of guys. You've got your Jack Ryan. He might be CIA. I'm sorry if I'm getting that mixed up. But you know what I'm saying?
Like I could still be doing counterterrorism.
Yeah, you're doing it from the office though. You're making the hard calls where your guys are just like, let me out there, coach, and you're like, this is why they call me coach.
That's right.
Inside the FBI.
Here.
Is he kind of like the Mandy Patinkin on Hostage?
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Wait, is that what that movie was called? Hostage? No, Homeland.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
There you go. Great show. Just FYI, has nothing to do with space.
It was a great show.
But if you're looking for a great show to start over the summer, Homeland, totally worth the watch.
I totally meant to bring this up. I hate to go all the way back to the beginning, but Christopher, you just turned 43. Mick, you're a little bit aged out already. I can still do this. Space Force.
Yeah.
Age limit was increased last year to 42.
Dang.
Missed it by that much.
You missed it. I mean, I don't think you...
Still time.
You got a few months.
I'm not
buddy.
43 yet.
Yeah,
but it's kind of crazy, isn't it, that we actually have a branch of the military?
Oh, that's where I
called
thought you were
Space
going
Force.
with it. Yeah, I don't understand it really.
Nor what the point.
Here's what I think is kind of funny about it. It's so preemptive. Like when you go back to World War II and you realize that there wasn't even an Air Force. Like they were called the Army Air Corps. Like they weren't even like they really dragged that out until they knew 100% sure that like the Air Force needed to be its own branch before they developed it, before they actually founded it. But like we're just going Space Force. Like, I think we need to have
maybe
like
we will, maybe we won't.
I think we should have an inner Space Force for like miniaturizing for like wars inside people's bodies. I mean,
Next
why not?
podcast, Inner
Next
Space.
podcast, Dennis Quaid in.
Why aren't we talking about
Dennis
that
Quaid
right
and
now?
Meg Ryan?
I mean,
Yes, we will be leaning very heavily on one movie from the 80s.
We only have one thing to go off of.
but Dennis Quaid was in the right stuff too, so
Oh.
he made that,
Outer space and inner space.
inner space. But I think the Space Force is somebody's joke of a government spending shenanigans.
Did you guys see the show Space Force? Steve Carell?
I saw like
I did.
3
I
episodes.
watched the first
of it
season.
and-
I watched the first season. Kind of a giant joke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
big time.
I kind of think
Not
the
great.
Air Force could do what the Space Force is doing. I don't understand the
Great.
need for the distinction at this point.
no, we
But-
don't have any interstellar enemies that we have to really deal with.
Or just like NASA, NASA. What am I trying to say? Consultants could like help consult the Air Force on various space-related, low Earth orbit-related things.
Issues.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the military uses satellites in space. We shoot intercontinental. We shoot them, but we have a system to shoot intercontinental ballistic missiles basically into space and out of space. So they know
Mhm.
how to do space. For now,
Well, it might surprise you that the first discussion of a U.S. Space Force was under Eisenhower in 1958
wow.
and nearly established in 82 by Reagan as part of his strategic defense initiative with his fake, what was it called, Star Wars?
Yes.
And then it says in 2001, this is Wikipedia, source of all sources, that
Sponsor of the show.
we almost had a space commission, or a space corps was almost formed, but due to September 11 attacks, it was put on hold. So this
Interesting.
thing goes way back. It's just it's kind of like people that are in the know are like, yeah, finally,
Yeah, maybe it's like
Got us a good
you know,
space force.
well, maybe
Yeah.
it's sort of like the Navy could probably do the Coast Guard's job, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
they have, you know what I mean? So maybe I should look at it that way.
And I mean the Space Force logo is pretty much the Star Trek logo.
Oh, I've never seen it.
I sent you guys a link to the website. Their website is killer. I'm going to say for a government website, it's amazing.
Well,
It
better
does look
be.
a lot like Star Trek. It's basically the upside down Pontiac symbol.
Yeah, I like that.
For those of you listening, Bo sent us all an application for Space Force.
I'm filling
Well,
it out.
I'm going to have them tell me no.
Maybe
That is
they
a-
won't care. They'll make
They're
an
like,
exception.
it's like, guy's got a master's degree in counseling. He's 46. Come on, let's go. Let's get this guy in here. He knows about the vestibular system. He's familiar.
Amazing.
So, yeah. Can't beat that deal.
Episode 5 in the books. I feel like we're kind of reaching a point here.
We did it.
We
so
did.
let's
We
call-
did not
let's
use the
call it-
word. Sorry,
we didn't
guys.
use the word. That's okay.
Vestibular.
Vestibular is our word. It's a system.
Okay.
It's obsolete in my circles.
Another word tied to vestibular is proprioception, which is just fun to say.
What does that mean?
What is
Doug?
that?
The closest thing to a doctor on this podcast
Yeah.
is you. So,
Mick, I am a doctor. I'm just not a physician. Thank you very much. It's the last time we'll talk about that. I have a doctorate degree, actually.
do you really have a doctorate? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, I never talk about it anymore because I don't use it, but
Do you think
Is
if
it
you got
from,
an
is it
honorary
from
doctor?
OU?
yes, it is from the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center.
I didn't realize
I
you
love
had
that.
your doctorate.
What'd you say, Christopher?
I said, do you think if you got a what do you call it, an honorary doctorate to somewhere, you would? I mean, you have a doctorate, so you wouldn't need to. But
You have a real one.
like, do you think you would say that you were a doctor?
No.
Dang.
I don't think so.
That
Not
takes a
not
lot-
not other than in jest.
that takes a lot of courage.
What do you have to do to get an honorary doctorate, though? Because I'd like to start working on that right now.
I mean, pretty much just be a celebrity.
Just be a celebrity, yeah.
The
Be
only people that I know that
inspirational
have them
celebrity.
are celebrities.
Yeah, or politicians,
True.
which
True.
are celebrities.
Yeah.
Let's get real.
True.
In a nutshell.
Proprioception is using the vestibular system. It's your body's ability to sense like movement. It's knowing where stuff is, like your body is in space.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There you
Let's
go.
go back to your doctorate. I need to go back to Bo's doctorate for a second because I kind of didn't realize he had that until about 30 seconds ago.
Does that? Oh, the doctorate.
Yeah. So I know you had your master's. Did you go?
So my degree program actually goes from a bachelor's degree in communication sciences and disorders directly into a doctorate program. Like a lot of programs now, I think pharmacy is like that. Allied health is the college that it falls into. Also, physical therapy is now a doctorate degree as its entry level.
Okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah,
because I was like, because I thought you got like a third degree. But it's really like your master's, but it rolls right into your doctorate, basically.
Yep,
That's
4 years. 4 years. 4 years after the bachelor's, and there you go.
That's pretty awesome, bro.
Thanks, Mick.
Dr. Gatlin.
Dr. Gatlin.
The doc.
The doc.
I think you got your nickname.
It makes me think.
Have we stumbled onto a nickname?
I don't think so. I think we have. Best in Show. You guys know that movie, right? Christopher Guest, of course.
Yeah. Yes,
mockumentary. There's an outtake. Maybe it's in the movie. Who's the guy? Is it Fred Willard? That's like the host of the dog show.
Yeah.
Yes. He just passed away a couple years ago.
He did. He's interviewing the short, buttoned up guy that oversees the dog show. He was very prim and proper. And he has his doctorate. I'm sure it's like a PhD or in research or something of dogs. And he's like, I'm here with Dr. So-and-so. He goes, hey, I got a problem with my shoulder right here. It's just Fred Willard just improvising.
It's just
and he goes,
so good.
I'm a doctor, just not the kind that helps people.
It's not the kind that helps people. That's awesome, guys. Well, good luck to SpaceX out there. Hope the launch goes well whenever it happens.
Yeah, tune in on the Thursday morning.
Yeah. Maybe the next time we talk, that'll have happened.
We'll see.
All right, guys. Have a great summer out there, man. Stay cool.
Have a great summer.
Stay cool forever.
I'm out.
That's just a great jam.
Was that tremolo?